Truth wears no mask, seeks neither place nor applause, bows to no human shrine. She only asks a hearing. A very pleasant good day to you wherever you may be. Welcome to the University of Common Sense. My name is Tim Morrow, and our subject is, we're going to talk about flus and colds. Flus and colds. It's getting near that season, flus and colds. And I got to remind you about one thing about the colds. We don't catch a cold. Little secret, we don't catch a cold. We eat it. And I'm going to try and explain that to you because I don't really want you to ever try and stop a cold or the flu. Why? Because they're your friend. They got a lot of names for them. But then, remember, the Disease Control Center at Atlanta, Georgia has 450 names named in honor of constipation. So when you start talking about flus and colds, you're talking about constipation. You're talking about food that you did not eliminate. What is the flu? What is the flu? What is the cold? That's your friend. They're both of them your friend. The flu and the cold. Whether you can call it anything you want. The only thing we know about it is that it's misery that comes from it. But the reason why the misery comes is because we eat food that's been processed. When I talk about process means you've taken all the life out of the food and you gave it a long shelf life. But one problem with that is that it has no nutrition in it. And food that has no nutrition in it burns very dirty. It burns like coal. It leaves a lot of residue behind. And that residue we call mucus. And that's what flus and colds are. It's just mucus. The result of eating processed food is that it don't burn clean. It leaves residue. And that residue will show up anywhere and everywhere. Number one is it's going to constipate us. That's the number one thing. But the second thing it does is probably more dangerous than the constipation. And that is that it leaves the residue behind that we call catarrh, we call mucus, call phlegm. And 90% of all Americans die by drowning in their own mucus. So let me tell you some of the people that produce this wonderful stuff. It's like Aunt Jemima, Uncle Ben, Betty Crocker, Sarah Lee, Kraft. Kraft is the king. Kraft is the king. The side effect of drinking the milk of a cow is that I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. But milk is good for you, and it is. Milk from a cow is excellent for a calf, but it's not good for human beings. You can't even break it down, and there's no calcium in it whatsoever. But it's not just that. God had something to do with this, and He doesn't deliver a cow to every newborn baby. Notice, no cows are around the hospital. There's absolutely nothing that you take from a cow that is good for it. It's great for a calf, though, but not for humans. You can't break down the dairy products. You can't break down the milk. A human being, even a grown human being, can't break it down. A baby sure can. So let me tell you a few of the names that it's called. And you're going to say, all of these are your enemy. No, they're not. Every one of them is your friend. Promise you. Fever, chills, coughing, vomiting, sweating, diarrhea, constipation, sneezing, nausea, migraine, or headaches of any kind, ear infection, skin, waste coming through the skin. The names coming through the skin is dandruff, acne, eczema, psoriasis, yeast infection, strep throat, athlete's foot. All of them are your buddy, your friend, your ally. That's the waste coming out of you. And it's really important to explain a couple of these, especially that of the skin, because when something comes through the skin, we treat as though the skin is doing us harm. The skin is actually doing what it's supposed to do. It's the other channels of elimination that aren't, like the colon, the lungs, the kidney, the vaginal tract. They're not doing what they're supposed to do. And so the skin brings it. The skin is the one thing that is operating the best. But we go to the dermatologist and he gives us stuff that makes us think that our skin is our enemy. No, your skin is doing the job that all the other organs should be helping them do. And what I try to do here is to show you that if you eliminate this through the other organs, it won't come through the skin. So the stuffy nose, that's mucus in the head. Remember, part of our respiratory system is in the head. We have the lungs, and that's the reason why you can have a head cold or chest cold. Because the same mucus that gathers in your lungs gathers in the head. For the woman, it's even worse because she's got a uterus that will hold a 12-pound baby, and that mucus gets in there as well. So what I'm trying to do is show you, first of all, the channels of elimination. Whatever we eat, we must eliminate every ounce of it. If you don't, that's called constipation. The one thing you must take care of is constipation, because constipation will get you rid of all those things that I just mentioned. It'll get you rid of all of those. The constipation, just opening up the bowel, takes care of at least 50% of your problem, probably more like 70%, because even mucus will show up in the colon if you can get it into the colon. The problem is it affects our breathing. And let me tell you something. When something affects your breathing, that's a whole different ballgame. I don't know if you've ever had problems breathing, but if you have, you don't want it again. And if you haven't had, you don't ever want it. And that's the dangers of processed food, is that it ends up in the lungs. Our lungs fill up. How? Because this is the way it happens. When we eat, whatever the body can use, it does use. Whatever it can't use and can't get rid of, it stores it. And where does it store it? It stores it in large spaces. Where is the large spaces? Large spaces is our lungs, and for the female, the vaginal tract. The uterus fills up with that. They call it fibroid tumors. They got all kinds of names that they call it. But all this has to do with flus and colds. The flu is just a cold that hasn't been taken care of. In other words, notice that each year the flu season comes around a little bit sooner. That's because last year you never got rid of all that's in the lungs. And so this year the lungs are filling up even more, so it comes soon. And the next year it'll come sooner. Why? Because you're not getting rid of each and every year that it comes going. Notice though that it comes in the time when we're the smallest. We're smaller in the winter time than in the summer. The body gets smaller and it doesn't have as much room to carry the waste, so it squeezes the waste out of the body. And what do? We run to the drugstore and get some kind of thing that will stop the waste from coming out. And of course, the doctor does the same thing. He gives you antibiotics. Antibiotics actually dries the waste up. That's not what you want to do. That's literally filling the lungs up. And as we go along in our life, at the end of our lives, after taking so many drugs to overcome or to stop this waste from coming out of us, it actually weakens the body to the point that you can't even cough. The mucus spills backward into the windpipe and we suffocate. That's how 90% of Americans die. You don't have to die that way. That's certainly no way to live. Certainly there's no way to die. That means we can do something about it. We can do something about getting this mucus out. Number one is don't put it in. We got little silly things like fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, lentil, beans, melons, legumes. They don't produce that mucus. In fact, they have nutrition in it. And that means you shop in the produce department of the supermarket. And let me tell you something, you can overcome so much of it just by changing your diet. You didn't do anything. add water, change the diet. Make sure that what you eat is alive. Shop in the produce department of the supermarket. I mean, being able to do for yourself, to learn for yourself, learn the body. The body is a wonderful piece of machinery, and it's always working to make us well. When the body starts getting sick, remember this, every 90 days you have new blood, every 11 months you have new organs, and every 2 years you have new bones. The body is always reproducing itself, but it's reproducing itself with what you gave it. With what you gave it. If it's fruits, vegetables, nuts, that's a good plant. That's planting good food. You'll have a good harvest. When you use the processed food, all the processed food means we removed all the life and you're eating the residue. You're actually eating what they should have thrown away. They didn't set out to do this to us. Don't misunderstand me. They didn't set out to do this. But living food spoils quickly, and that represents a monetary law. Follow the money. Once you follow the money, you'll understand that once it's on that shelf life is great, you have no nutrition. You got to exchange something. And if you're going to have food that don't spoil, you're also going to have food that has no nutrition in it. And that's what we choose. In fact, so much of our food is produced in a laboratory that the government pays farmers not to grow crops because there'd be no market for it, because it's produced in a laboratory. And that's what Americans are eating, the processed food. And the one thing that you always want to look for, and you'll find it in everything, is whey. W-H-E-Y. Whey is the waste from making cheese, but it ends up in the lungs, and most people don't even understand that it is a dairy product. A person who is allergic to dairy products, taking that and never knowing it, will end up with breathing problems. And let me tell you something about breathing when it comes to children. When they're diagnosed with asthma, they start giving them drugs that dries the mucus up in the lungs. We grow, our height comes from being able to breathe. You always stunt the growth of a child who's taking asthma medicine or medicine for the lung. Anything like that is worsening the condition for that child, because that child is going to grow up to be an adult. The doctor's going to say to Mrs. Smith, don't worry about little Johnny. And little Johnny, by the age of 18, he'll outgrow his asthma. And by golly, that looks just like what he's done. Little Johnny can run and do everything that he wants. But at 20, little Johnny is rushed to the hospital because he can't breathe. Nature served her first warning. That mucus that they dried up now is filling the lungs up. And if that incident don't kill him, well, Johnny's been put on warning because the mucus is still there. So you have to get this mucus out of the lungs. And the lungs is one of the channels of elimination. In fact, your lungs are more important than all of your other organs combined. Because if you can't breathe, you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to worry about the rest of the organ. Okay? They got a lot of faces, especially constipation. I'm going to just read a couple of words here. Strictures, spasms, balloon sigmoid, diverticular, prolapsus, colitis. Every one of those are diseases of the colon. But it's only one disease. It's called constipation. Let me tell you, if you just take care of the constipation alone and didn't do anything else, if you didn't do anything else but just take care of the constipation, your health will become at least 50% better. And all this flus and colds and all the other names, they got mean like pneumonia and all that is mucus in the lung. It's mucus in the lung. Regardless of what you call it, you just want to get rid of it. And that's the main thing, is getting rid of it. But you got to know what you need to do to get rid of it. Now, I'm a guy that uses herbs. I believe in herbs 1,000,000%, and because I do, my health is better than it's ever been in my life. At 82 years old, I'm still roller skating and playing tennis and doing all the things. So it's up to the individual, but you are the only person that can make you well. Nobody else can make you well. The fever is burning up. Fever in particular. When you start taking drugs for the fever, you prolong the fever. The fever is the body heating up to thin mucus out. Wherever the body heats up, it thins mucus out. Let me give you a couple of examples. If you go running somewhere, what happens? Boy, you start building with a lot of mucus. If you eat something hot with fire or hot with seasoning, you get a runny nose. That runny nose is the body heating up, and whenever the body heats up, it will thin mucus out. Well, the fever is an act of God. And it gives you that so that you can thin that mucus out, and that mucus can start to come out. That's what you want to do. That's what the flu and the cold is getting it out. And there are many things that can help you get it out of it that nature has to offer. There's an herb called mullein, M-U-L-L-E-I-N. Mullein actually softens the mucus. Now let me tell you about what I do. I use mullein all year round. Why? Because I don't want the mucus to build up in my lungs. When the mucus builds up and fills the lungs up, there's no place for it to go. Now you get the miseries of a cold. Mucus is very acid, so it burns wherever it comes out. You think about those things that I mentioned: dandruff, acne, eczema, psoriasis, yeast infection, strep throat, athlete's foot. Every one of it is that mucus burning its way out. And when you scratch, mucus is very acid, so if you scratch it, it'll leave a sore. Because it's acid, it'll burn right through the skin. Mullein helps to get that out. I produce herbs that helps to bring. I have an herb called lung health. Lung health softens the mucus so you can cough it up. Here's the thing though. Remember this. When you start taking mullein or you start taking the lung health, it's going to soften mucus, and you're going to be bringing up a lot of mucus. Guess what you're going to do? You're going to run to the drugstore again and get something that stops it from coming out. And therein is the problem. And surely, medicine assumes they're doing the right thing by giving you antibiotics. But remember, the antibiotic dries mucus up. You want the mucus out. When the mucus comes out of the body, it can't harm you anymore. Fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, grains, lentils, beans, melons, legumes, those are things that burn clean. Those are gifts from God. They burn clean. Use that in your diet. Make that a part of your diet. Plenty of water. Remember, in those things that I mentioned, the fruits, the vegetables, 71% water. The body is 71% water. The earth is 71% water. So it means that you need water inside of you. And it needs to be in the form of water, not Coca-Cola or anything else, but in the form of water. And that is something that we have to look at when we are beginning to drink water. And let me tell you something. Don't let somebody dictate to you how much water you need to drink. You drink when you're thirsty, you sleep when you're sleepy, you eat when you're hungry. The body dictates that to you. So in the end, some of these items that can change our life. Number one is changing your diet to a good diet will cause you to bring up a lot of mucus. You want to see as much mucus as you can through the bowel and as mucus as you can. Don't stop mucus from coming up. Please don't stop. The cough syrups, that's what it's for, to stop you from coughing. Robitussin is to keep you from coughing. Coughing is a gift from your Creator. And it is a good sign that the body is in shape enough to bring the mucus out. The most precious organs of your body is your lungs. Over and over and over again, I'll tell you that. As important as it is to eliminate and have bowel movement, because the colon will accept the waste even from the lung, the most precious organs of your body are the lungs. This is what they call the flu, pneumonia. They got all kinds of names that they call it, but it's mucus. in the body. All you're going to do is work to get that mucus out of the lung. That's what the cold, the flus, and all these names are. But it's just the side effect of processed food. And we have to learn that growing old does not make us sick. It's growing sick that makes us old. For the University of Common Sense, I'm Tim Morrow, and we hope you'll see us next time.